So, some new information. During the 3-day trial, April 2023, there was somebody who I believe to be a crypt who met me at a pizza shop. I was with my witness, and she was an older lady, smaller stature, older lady. So I'm not for sure what they had suspected was going on, but two gentlemen comes into the pizza parlor, and they were dressed up in like bandanas and seeming to come in pretty, like tough guys. But as soon as they came in, I just started chit-chatting with them, and the one guy had something around his neck, like some sort of necklace, like a lightsaber. And then I had asked him his name, and he said that his name was Ray. Now, the founder of the Crips was Raymond Washington. So I thought that was pretty interesting. There was something else that happened in Conejos County that I thought was interesting. One of the most beautiful moments of my life. Wherever I go, there always seems to be, nature is rooting for me. So when I was in Costilla County, there's a bunch of desert roses that was growing all over the place. When I was in Conejos County, I came down the mountainside to, the main drag there. I forget, was it County Road 5.5 or something? But when I came down in the field, a cattle field, there was like 30 head of deer. Like 30 headed deer just, chilling in a field. It was one of the most beautiful moments of my life. 30 deer just chilling in a field. And then Colorado law actually started my love for natural law and my loathing of the common law. I thought that was pretty interesting. The vigil decision says it's not just the self-defense. Self-defense isn't just, the Constitution, but that comes from natural law. That was 1960 vigil decision, which was actually a situation that had happened in Conejos County. Old man Vigil had confronted somebody and ended up shooting the person. So here is Joe Canty, and Joe Canty is signing this complaint against me. He just came from Robert Pickerell's house. Now, Robert Pickerell, he committed a bunch of crimes. Robert Pickerell was a passenger during a drive-by shooting. Robert Pickerell didn't give a damn about planning and zoning. Robert Pickerell had said when he first met up that, when he first moved there, that Kenny Capin was visiting him. And then it was like the day or two after the drive-by shooting had happened. And so I very much am, not 100% convinced, but maybe 91% convinced that it was Kenny Capin and Robert Pickerell. It was definitely Robert Pickerell on the passenger side who was flashing his lights at my house. So Robert Pickerell had been stalking me. Robert Pickerell had been harassing me nonstop, flickering lights over at me. He didn't give a damn about planning and zoning. And then when I would call the police, he would stay inside his house. And even Schultz, we're looking through Schultz's camera right here. And I don't see where Cruz Soto, it didn't look like Cruz Soto had a body camera on. But Schultz was there. Schultz caught Robert Pickerell in the act of harassing. And then he just stayed outside of the driveway with his little PA system saying, "You need to come out here," and he never did. So, they don't know how to figure that out. Pickerell was stalking me. Pickerell had driving too closely, so not just he was a passenger, so he was a participant of a drive-by shooting. He would know who the driver of the truck was. He had been stalking me. He drove too close when I was driving into Antonito. He was just right there on my bumper. Oh man, it was pissing me off so much too. When someone is just, like ramming up into your bumper, like trying to get you to go faster or something. I don't know what he was doing, but it's oppressive. And he's also an ex-felon, so I'm not for sure who he's associated with. the right-wing sovereign movement is all over the place in Costilla County. Costilla County is synonymous with the sovereign Nazi movement. So it's interesting that Joe Canty delivered these goods to Robert Pickerell's house. He delivered the goods to Robert Pickerell's house. And then when he delivered the goods to Robert Pickerell's house, Robert Pickerell told Joe Canty to make sure he called 911. Make sure you call 911. And then he did, and he seemed unsure of it, like whether he was going to or not going to. I'm not for sure if I should. Yeah, you jerked your damn steering wheel at me, right? He's a liar, but let's just carry on and watch this, see if we can. I got this quote here. I'll try to read some quotes because it just looks like a white truck. Sheriff's SUV just drove up the road. So I'm going to just, nothing too much interesting happens, but they have a few exchange of words. From Federalist 83.
Walk out 6057. Just got 3. Yeah.
Hey, turn around.
And just whenever y'all get to the house, you want 133.
See this car coming? Yeah. Watch and see, make sure if that's it or not.
So you can see that his right hand is shaking and his left hand is shaking. I think he's just nervous being around police officers. Also, he's a compulsive, pathological liar. He said he didn't see a 6-foot-tall man with 5 dogs. He was driving like 3 miles an hour, and then when my dog started veering towards him, it looks like he drove even slower. And then when I told him to get the fuck out of here, very certain terms, get the fuck out of here, pointing, you know, out to the Sunday de Cristo Mountains. To the east, he jerked his steering wheel because he was a tough guy. He was a tough guy. Now, he's going to pretend none of that happened. He's going to pretend he didn't jerk the steering wheel. He didn't jerk his, you know, here's the big rig that he was driving. And you can hear how loud it is in his video. He had, you know, something on the back of it. Robert Pickerell, who didn't do anything with planning and zoning, so he delivered these goods without caring if he was in compliance with planning and zoning. I can, you know, maybe I was being too lawful, but I don't see how that's a mistake, to be honest with you. Man, you're just too lawful. You're following all the laws. You're following the national, the state, and local laws. There was one guy that was going to dig a ditch, and he wanted to see my planning and zoning papers, which I guess, you know, do your due deference, but he didn't do his due deference. In fact, when I saw him parked over at Robert Pickerell's house, that's when I knew, you know, he drove by once, drove by twice. I couldn't tell if he was just a hooligan in a dangerous neighborhood or if he was actually, you know, a part of the general bullshit. But since he was parked at Robert Pickerell's house, that's when I knew that something was amiss. That's when I knew for sure that, you know, I had no doubts in my mind that this guy was corrupt. This guy was, you know, a criminal. He jerked his steering wheel, acts like he's going to, you know, drive up into the sagebrushes, threatening my life. And then I fired 3 warning shots in defense of the Second Amendment, Article 2, Section 13. And then that was it. He's going to deliver the goods over to Robert Pickerell, and then he's going to leave. And then that was it. Then he calls the police, and now we see all this happening right here. So Schultz is kind of freaking out. Is this John? Is John Masters up here driving around? You know? So even though I had called Keith Schultz a bunch of times about Robert Pickerell harassing, stalking, doing a drive-by shooting, Tecumseh was murdered, and then there was other harassing, people spotlighting me. There was arsons that had happened. Schultz came out there many times. He had nothing but delivered indifference. He didn't give a damn. He didn't give a goddamn. Robert Pickerell could do drive-by shooting at me. That doesn't get him arrested. Why wouldn't that get him arrested? All this guy is doing is just filling out some paperwork. So the only evidence that they have is this guy's words. So Schultz right now is like freaking out. There's somebody that's driving around, you know, I don't even know where they're actually sitting at. but he's like close by County Road G and then Seminole and Kiowa. And so he just sees somebody that's driving around up here, and he's like, "Is that him? Is that him? Man, you've been to my house a bunch of times. Don't you know that I had a tan Chevrolet? How many times have you been to my house? You didn't make a note of the vehicle I was driving?"
Looks like a pickup.
What was he driving?
That looks like he's coming up Kiowa there. That might be Seminole. Either one of them that he could make it here from his house.
So he's saying it looks like he's hauling ass. He says it could be Kiowa or Seminole. Seminole is closer to, right by where my house is. The intersection of Delaware and Seminole is right there. Robert Pickrell's on the right-hand side, I'm on the left-hand side. The parallel road to Seminole on the other side, maybe, a quarter mile down the road would be Kiowa Trail.
There was a black Jeep or something.
What was he driving?
Well. The guy who was driving it was a Chevy or a GMC.
What color was it?
Brownish.
He was mentioning that there was a black Jeep. There was a black Jeep that was, driving around. Then he's going to say something about a black SUV, which is interesting.
Dark brown, like darker brown silver plate, or like a flakish looking. Looked like a prairie truck out here.
You want us to switch to off for this? Hey, for this reason, I was asking if you want 33 traffic. If you guys will switch over to go steal off in this call, I'd appreciate it.
Can't tell. It don't look like it, but like I said, there was another vehicle out there too, a black SUV.
Hey guys, watch this vehicle that's pulling up on you onto G right now from Seminole, Kiowa, one or the other.
Forrester, did you copy that?
I did copy that. I'm the one talking.
Okay, so he just said something that's like, "Did you copy?" And he's like, "I'm the one that just said that." But that's interesting. He was talking about a black Jeep or a black SUV that was driving around there. And now we see that there's a truck that's hauling ass. Who is this truck that's hauling ass? Who is this black Jeep? Who is this black SUV? Why are they ignoring all of this stuff? There's a person that's like speeding like crazily out here. Why are they speeding like crazy out here? This doesn't make sense. They should, pull some of these people over and ask what the hell are they doing?
Drove right past him, so it wasn't. Hopefully, it wasn't him.
Hopefully.
I'm always afraid of this shit.
Get up on this hill
out here too.
Hold on.
Copy that works with us. You have your binos, mine are in my truck. Yeah, I have them. Copy 7 has disappeared.
Alright, so now what was that?
Yeah, it's always scary coming out here not knowing exactly where you're going for that reason.
Oh, I know it.
I could have made the mistake and walked up to that guy's house.
Oh, yeah.
He could have made the mistake of walking up to that guy's house. You were lost. That's why you were staring at a 6-foot-tall man with 5 dogs. And when I told you to get the fuck out of here, you jerked your steering wheel. That's what you did. So when he's like, "Oh, I could have made the mistake," yeah, maybe you were. That's what you're doing. Maybe you were lost, But when you jerked your damn steering wheel, that's when you went from I'm just a benign delivery guy to hell. Maybe I'll run you over. Maybe I'll run you over. What's up? Like a tough guy,
Been working out here for quite some time now.
Oh, I'm sure. They call this Blood Valley out here.
What did he say?
Been working out here for quite some time now.
Oh, I'm sure. They call this Blood Valley out here.
He says they call it Blood Valley out here. They call it Blood Valley. So, he understands that, this was a rough neighborhood. So why be a hooligan in a rough neighborhood? And then Schultz saying he's been out here for a while right now. Yeah, how come you didn't make any damned arrest, So I still want to read Federalist number 83. This is Hamilton. He says, arbitrary impeachments, arbitrary methods of prosecuting pretended offenses, and arbitrary punishments upon arbitrary convictions have ever appeared to me to be the great engines of judicial despotism, and these have all relation to criminal proceedings. The trial by jury in criminal cases, aided by the Habeas Corpus Act, seems therefore to be alone concerned in the question, and both of these are provided for in the most ample manner in the plan of the convention. Here we have Federalist number 84. The practice of arbitrary imprisonments have been in all ages the favorite and most formidable instruments of tyranny. Then Hamilton goes on to quote Blackstone, the judicious Blackstone. The confinement of the person by...
I can see his head. I don't know what he has there.
Confinement of the person by secretly hurrying him to jail where his sufferings are unknown or forgotten is a less public, less striking, and therefore a more dangerous engine of arbitrary government. And then that's why the Habeas Corpus Act is encomiends on the Habeas Corpus Act, which in one place he calls the bulwark of the British Constitution. That's why we got the Habeas Corpus Act. So it's interesting that he says that the practice of arbitrary imprisonments have been in all ages the favorite and most formidable instruments of tyranny. Arbitrary imprisonments.
Sorry, Charlie, I can't see him now, but he was definitely outside. Can you just go towards the front, see if you have anything with him?
Okay, so that sounded like it was Cruz Soto, and he was saying that he had saw me before, but now he doesn't see me. So do you want to just go ahead and breach the perimeter, go ahead and trespass on his land anyways? When I had talked to this ginger, I looked outside and I saw police officers, like 5 police officers out by the road, and I said, they're out there by, right in front of my house. Before I had 5 trucks and nobody's none the wiser, right? But now the 5 police officers are out there, and the ginger says, why don't you go talk to him? Just go talk to him. Okay. So there's my dogs right now. They've been puppies, just sort of running around, freely, kind of in a pile, but they're getting to that age where they're getting bigger. And there's one that's bigger than the rest, and there's 2 of them that's bigger than the other 2, and then there's like 2 kind of...
I hope I got it all. If not, my info's there.
2 smaller ones.
Can you email that to me?
Yeah. Yeah, the whole time I was coming up Seminole, I kept trying to make the call, and my phone wouldn't work, so in the first place, it went to K. Schultz.
K. Schultz, SCHULTZ. Like Hogan's Heroes.
Castilla County.
Yep.
How long have you been with Castilla County?
Since 2010.
probably me and my dad. He was a deputy with Pinellas County for a while.
Who's your
Charles
dad?
County.
I know the name.
He worked just at the jail there.
Oh.
So, is that hyphen or underscore?
Dash. .gov. And then after you get it sent, take a picture. In this case, it doesn't send, so you can send it again in case it doesn't. Because it's just the way it is out here.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there was cussing in this video too, so I'm
Not worried about it.
pretty sure this is.
There's all kinds of cussing when I got shot.
They won't let me send it because it's too big.
Okay. You got it. I don't know what to do as far as.
I'll figure out one way or another. Even if I gotta break it up, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Right on.
Do I have a number I can get in touch with you here?
Yeah, 992-1815.
Okay.
Can you read that? I was
Yeah.
sort of shaking at the time. Like I said, I haven't had that much adrenaline going through me in a long time, so.
How long were you in the Army?
8 years. The last time I think I had that much adrenaline going
992?
Huh?
992?
Yeah, 992-1815 was 9/11. My unit was the one called to the Pentagon to guard it until 10th Mountain got in and relieved us.
I was.
So it was interesting that Schultz had talked about how he got shot. I didn't know that. I think I read about it somewhat, and I don't know that situation. So if he had got shot before, then I could understand why he would be nervous about some things. But since people are shooting at me, you know, if he's a police officer and he's at his home and someone shot at him, he's going to make an arrest. He's going to file something. Somebody's going to get arrested. But he definitely ignored my situation. Oh, Robert Pickerel was a passenger to a drive-by shooting against you? Ah, well, who gives a crap? That's your life. I don't care about your life. I have deliberate indifference. Why would I give a damn? I'm going to open this door here for Emma Goldman and Eucalyptus. Those are the two bigger ones. Kazama Qatar is the biggest one. So maybe it'll quiet it up, you know, give the chance for the two smaller ones, Nathan Hale and Rosa Luxembourg. But let's get Eucalyptus and I'm not jumping around. We all calm down. You try to get out too fast. Get out here. There. Okay, so we got Nathan Hale. Hopefully they'll be quiet, but I fear they'll still find some issue. But we got Nathan Hale, Eucalyptus, which is Marianne Bachmeyer. Marianne Bachmeyer, Nathan Hale, Rosa Luxembourg, and of course Emma Goldman. And that's Sasha's puppies. So.
At Fort Campbell, Kentucky, when 9/11 happened.
Wow.
We were ready to deploy in 12 hours.
Yeah, I was working.
It's my Bullwinkle badge.
I was working at a stationary warehouse at the time, and all of our phones went quiet for a while.
Oh, yeah.
So I went in and I saw what was going on. I was like, I'm gonna be getting a phone call. Sure enough, about 45 minutes later, we need down here.
I just came back from PT to my apartment. My wife says, "Hey, turn on the TV." I was like, "What station?" She goes, "Any station."
Any.
You know, I turned it on, and just in time to see the replay of the second plane hit. I was like, "Well, we're going to war." Bye. Click.
Yep, that's pretty
That
much
was it.
how it was. I just looked at everybody. I was like, well, it was nice working with you.
You
I'll
know,
be back in a year or two.
So it's interesting that they're relating on not just military, one's Army, one's Navy or something, but the other interesting part was he was like, "Oh, you might know my father. My father had worked out by the jail or did this or did that," and that's what Cruz Soto had said. He had mentioned that. Oh, I knew Joe Canty. Oh, I know Joe. So he isn't just going to just make up stuff. He isn't just going to lie. I got some other quotes here. Let's read this one quote. Here's a good quote. Okay, so this comes from Brinegar v. U.S. Now, according to Brinegar v. U.S. 1949, we must remember that the extent of any privilege of search and seizure without a warrant which we sustain, the officers interpret and apply themselves and will push to the limit. So whenever there's, some search or seizure without a warrant that's allowed, officers will push that to the limit. Probable cause is very important.
We didn't deploy, we were ready to deploy on 12 hours, but then we were 3rd Brigade Combat Team, and 3rd Brigade, we were 1st, 3rd Brigade Combat Team. Our commanders had a wiener sizing contest, and they won, so they got to go first. And
that was like us,
a wiener sizing contest, and he also talked about a bullweasel bag. I mean, I enjoyed talking to him, and I'm glad that Schultz was on the scene. I just wish he would have done something. I wish he would have done more, because my theory of this whole case is the reason why they're going to arrest me is because I called 911 a dozen or 2 times, and they were fucking sick of it. They didn't really know who I was, and now, after I called, 20 times, and it was arsons that came out there, so they put out fires. And then when the police came, then the people, went back into their homes. There was this horse that was stuck in a fence. There was other things that was happening. So me being out there, I gave I was a civilizing force when I was out there. And so, there was more structures had been saved, or at least they, at least know that there's some craziness going on here. Why would he consider this Blood Valley? I've heard a bunch of names, but Blood Valley, I used to call it the Louvetti. The Louvetti.
I was, like I said, we reported to the Pentagon while it was still burning. Then 10th Mountain came in, relieved us. We were only there for like 6 hours. Then we moved out. I was waiting to get deployed somewhere else because of what was going on, and then I got stationed stateside guarding shit that they say we don't have, so...
Right? Anyway, thanks for your service. I'm gonna get out there.
Right on.
I'll get in touch with you.
Am I good to leave?
Yes, you're good to leave. I can get in contact with you.
If not, you got my trading post. I work there.
Alright.
Yeah.
You can get in touch with us.
You got a card?
No, I'm just gonna give you another blank one of these, and it's got everything. Alright.
So there's, you see the rig, right? This large industrial truck. So could this be a weapon? Could you drive this truck up onto, the plains? Could you run a person over with this truck? Could you run a dog over with this truck? Can this truck, it's not a knife and it's not a gun, but could it be used as a bludgeon? Because felony menacing is when you threaten somebody in order to cause fear in the other person with either a knife, gun, or a bludgeon. When he jerked his steering wheel towards me, was he not threatening to use this truck as a bludgeon? Come on now. Give me a goddamn break. And the Second Amendment, sometimes, it leads to a fatal... the David Delata had used it, Second Amendment to, there was that Saguache County deputy that just used the Second Amendment, the right to defend himself. So if you could use the Second Amendment up to a justifiable, shooting, justifiable slaying or shooting a person, then certainly you could use the Second Amendment for a few warning shots. Joe Canty said he wasn't injured. He wasn't injured. But all this goings on, this is going to injure me substantially. He got no injury. I was injured. I have a Brinegar v. U.S. quote here. Let's play this for another 30 seconds.
I saw a truck coming, so I hauled ass down the road until I could tell that it wasn't him. And I just had no way to harder myself besides laying down in that truck. Right on.
Any one of these, dispatch is the one I prefer to go through.
Alright.
Office is just a jail, they don't know shit, so...
Don't call the fax machine, I'll get a whole bunch of great sounds.
Exactly.
Alright, man.
Alright, man.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you guys for your service, and we'll see what we can do, alright?
Can you let me know what happens or whatever?
Oh, we'll definitely let you know.
Alright.
Alright.
So Keith Schultz was expecting me to just keep on taking drive-by shootings from Robert Pickerel and let him stalk me and harass me and continue to be harassed and stalked. And he was just going to let me just basically just get it out here, right? He was just going to let me just be a victim of crime over and over again. And then the moment that I say stop, that's the moment that he's going to, hey, you don't say stop to the crimes. Really? I don't say stop to the crimes. In some respects, 3 warning shots isn't just a Second Amendment case, it's a First Amendment case. Because, there is no danger of being shot by a person who shoots up in the air from behind the house. He's out of my line of sight. And so it was just really a loud noise. And I was remonstrating and I was saying, get the hell out of here. So, Keith Schultz thinks it's okay for a citizen in Costilla County to be a victim of 200 crimes. But the moment they say, stop committing crimes against me, then he's like, hey, that's not allowed. You're not allowed to say, stop committing crimes. That pisses me off. I don't like that at all. Okay, thanks. I'm so glad you're on the force. So glad. Okay, so Brenniger v. U.S. 1949, it's a smuggling liquor case, but they got some interesting quotes. So not only if you allow some, search and seizures without a warrant that they uphold, then just know that police officers are going to push that boundary. They're going to push that boundary as much as possible. Brenniger v. U.S. 1949 also says this. These long-prevailing standards seek to safeguard citizens from rash and unreasonable interferences with privacy and from unfounded charges of crime. They also seek to give fair leeway for enforcing the law in the community's protection, because many situations which confront officers in the course of executing their duties are more or less ambiguous. Room must be allowed for some mistakes on their part, but the mistakes must be those of reasonable men, acting on facts, leading sensibly to their conclusions of probability. The rule of probable cause is a practical, non-technical conception affording the best compromise that has been found for accommodating these often opposing interests. Requiring more would unduly hamper law enforcement. To allow less would be to leave law-abiding citizens at the mercy of the officer's whim or caprice. So that's the reason why we have the standard of probable cause. It's a balancing test. Yeah, people have rights, but you got to stop crime. So what is that balancing test? Well, you have to determine probable cause. There was never a judicial determination of probable cause. So this is, both a court problem and a police officer problem. Here they just heard that Joe Canty said some words and, he embellished a lot. To put it nice, he lied. He straight up lied. And, the physics of it doesn't make sense, and a lot of it doesn't make any sense. But they didn't talk to me. They didn't consider, what my perspective was. And if you have 2 people with counter claims, then you need a third person. You need another witness to be able to determine who is right or wrong. Because if only 2 people saw, the incident that had happened, then you're just picking, the winner and loser based upon who your friendship was. You're just saying, I trust you, but not you. If one person is, a pathological liar and the other one's a pathological truth teller, maybe that could, tell you something. But ultimately, if all you have is words and you don't have personal knowledge and you don't have videotape of the damn thing, then you don't know. you don't know what exactly happened. And since you don't know any other additional piece of evidence, a physical piece of evidence, anything else, a witness, there was 4 eyewitnesses. Robert Pickerel was an eyewitness. They're not going to interview Robert Pickerel. Then you also had Adam Clayton, and then I want to say Noah Spaulding was outside his trailer, watching the whole time. Either Nick or Noah. It looked like it was Noah coming out of his house. And so then there was that lady, Phil Greeny was staying at Jacqueline Mitchell's house, and then she took a picture. So there's a woman who took a picture that they did not bring into court. There's, Adam Clayton, he was inside his home. Maybe he saw something, maybe he didn't. It would be interesting to know what he knew and what he didn't know. And then Noah Spaulding, well, he lies all the time, so there's no telling. And then Noah Spaulding had let me adopt Mufasa. And, I got one of my puppies now is baby Shakti. And because of the happiness that Mufasa had given me, for the last several years, I've very much downplayed his role. They just moved out into the community, and me and him did have, some an incident or two that had happened. But I very much feel like what he was doing was different than what the general culture of harassment and crime was. I feel like it was different. They were new, kind of thinking that they were going along with whatever the culture was, but they were going along with right-wing sovereign crap. And they were surrounded by right-wing sovereigns, and if you think, oh, dude is the person we're going to screw over, they knew my dog. They knew Tecumseh was a good dog. When they told Tecumseh to leave, Tecumseh would go. And so, at first you could, say, damn, man, that sucks. And then when I said, hey, let's go confront them, or I said I didn't know what to do, Nick had suggested to go confront them, but Noah said not to, and I regret actually not going to confront him, because that would have actually solved the damn thing. That would have actually I would have got some information, from that perspective. And that also kind of teaches me how they look at a situation. Instead of reaching out to law enforcement, now I'm just going to knock on the person's door and just, see how they answer and see what they say. And so, and if I don't like what they're saying, then we're scrapping, right? We're going to be scrapping. So, yeah, the Noah Spaulding was an eyewitness. Adam Clayton was an eyewitness. Robert Pickerel, definitely. Adam Clayton was inside his little shack. It'd be crazy for him not to hear 3 gunshots and for people to drive a big rig and then drive here, drive there. It'd be interesting for him to not have opened his door and looked outside. And so I had subpoenaed him, subpoenaed Noah, and I subpoenaed that lady in Phil Greeny's house. And none of those 4 eyewitnesses showed up for trial. So if all you have is person A, person B, and they have counter claims, one is saying something and the other one is saying, I'm telling the truth. I swear to God, he jerked his damn steering wheel. I swear to God that, I swear on my life, I swear on everything that's holy. He slowed his damn truck down. I told him to get the hell out of here. If you're like, well, why would he jerk, if he didn't know any of the people? Because I told him to get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. And I'm pointing, to the east. Get the fuck out of here. And I said it like 3 or 4 times. My dogs was walking towards him. So he was driving slow enough to where he was, bothering my day. And my dogs were not on leashes at the time, because I would just walk in a little circle in the backyard, and then it worked out well, because walk about 5 little laps out there and then walk back into the house. But if you have a big industrial truck driving in front of your damn lawn who's enticing your dogs to come towards him, well, now I got to deal with I had to get into a jog. I had to run into a brisk jog to catch my attention of my dogs to get them back inside the house. And actually, I was able to get 4 of the dogs inside the house, but you saw how Tim had snuck outside somehow. So, he was driving slow enough to entice my dogs. I was telling him to get the hell out of here, because it's like, man, can I just fucking walk my fucking dogs? I can't even walk my fucking dogs in my own goddamn backyard. Yeah, maybe you're lost. Maybe you're just a hooligan in a dangerous neighborhood. Maybe you're delivering to Robert Pickerel and you're giving him roofing material so he can continue to build his illegal settlement. He's not a lawful person. He's not a moral person. He's committing crimes against me, and you're in cahoots with the damn criminal. You're in fucking cahoots with the goddamn criminal. So, in some respects you could say that Noah was a distant eyewitness, and maybe the lady at Phil Greeny's was distant. Maybe Adam Clayton did or did not see it. The society is owed every man's evidence. So Adam Clayton should have given us a statement whether or not he saw something or didn't see something. Also, Noah and Nick in some respects, but I'm pretty sure it was Noah. And so they should have given a statement that they saw something that day or they did not see something that day. And, from their perspective, from Noah's perspective, he probably didn't see much, but he could have heard something, he could have heard something. And just bringing any of these folks into the courtroom would have, added a perspective that people didn't know. You have person A and person B. Something happened in between them, and the only way you can add any more light to what had happened is with physical pieces of evidence. If there was bullet fragments, say, inside, on the damn truck. There wasn't. So, they had no extra evidence besides his words. And Joe Canty is, Martin Luther King, Jesus Christ on the cross himself. He's, Dr. Martin Luther King who's got a dream. No, he isn't, Mr. Stellar Honesty. If anything, he lied over and over again. He lied. And so you have a liar versus a true teller, but since these people are tired of me calling 911, well, they're going to fuck me over, right? I'm tired of driving all the way out here because, people are committing crimes and doing drive-by shootings. I survived 39 shots, 7 or 8 assassination attempts. Phil Greeny had, messed with me so many damn times doing this stop-and-go crap. And it took me a while to find out that it was him because, it didn't make any sense. It seemed like it came from Jacqueline Mitchell's house, but she had actually moved. And so it was just Phil Greeny that was down there. So I'm thinking like, man, why is Jacqueline doing all that? So Jacqueline messed with me maybe, 3, 4, a dozen, 6 or a dozen times, but then she had moved. And then after she had moved, Phil Greeny kept it up. And this is in a guy, Gonzalez. The guy who owns that house is Gonzalez, which is the judge's name too, which is a popular name, so that doesn't necessarily mean one thing or another. But if you have person A and person B, and they walked into a room, and then they both came out, and they said, well, he stole my money. Well, he, spit on me. Okay, do you have any evidence of any one of these things, right? And if you have no physical evidence, then do you have a witness? Do you have a witness who saw when you all went into the room? No. Did you have witness when you walked into the room? And then the recent Supreme Court case talked about the totality of the circumstances. So not only did you see immediately going in beforehand or afterwards, what was his character like? What was he talking before this thing had happened? And then what about afterwards, right? So you can put all that information together, and that would paint up a more fuller picture. Adam and I had been on friendly terms. All of us actually were on friendly terms at some point in time, except for Phil and Jacqueline. The son, Jacqueline Mitchell's son, and I was on friendly terms for a while, her 20-year-old son. And then, but she was an asshole to begin with. Phil Greeny was an asshole to begin with. And so, if they were being honest, they would say, oh yeah, we were on good terms, but then, something happened, something soured. It'd be interesting if they would have actually showed up for trial and if they would have actually said what they had saw. But they didn't. And then ultimately, Adam Clayton, maybe he saw something, maybe he didn't see something inside the damn shelter. But he would have definitely mentioned he was big about planning and zoning, about following planning and zoning. He's just trying to live by the code. He's just trying to live by the laws of, Colorado and Costilla County. He's putting pressure on me to, make sure I'm into planning and zoning. And so I started working on my stuff and digging a ditch and getting a septic tank. And then the Noah would have said the exact same thing. And even fucking Pickerel would have said the same thing if they were being honest. And then the 20-year-old from Jacqueline Mitchell, he would have, been like, oh yeah, he was a cool guy. He was treating me neighborly. And then, mom got crazy on him. And then we didn't really talk much after that. And one time Tecumseh was down there by my house, but Tecumseh wasn't a mean dog. So they could have testified to all that. Then the lady that was at Phil Greeny's house would have said, oh, he came at, after this, the warning shots, he drove around the block and he's yelling at me. Okay, but was he shooting at you? No, he flipped me off, though, and I took a picture of him flipping me off. Oh, okay. So here's a picture of Jonathan flipping, her off as I drove around. Then I parked in front of my, driveway. So, there's other things and other pieces of this puzzle that had happened. And so that's important. The Sixth Amendment says you have a right to subpoena and you have a right to, compulsory process and a right to confrontation. and I have a right to call up witnesses that are, to my favor, whether they're hostile or friendly. In some respects, if they are hostile to me, they would have all the reason in the world to lie. So if they had said something, kind, then that would have, painted up something else. But let's put those three eyewitnesses to the side, right? Adam, Noah, and the lady in Phil Greeny's house. Who the hell that the lady was? Not really obese or fat, but chubby-ish. And all I did was I stopped by her house. And I said, "Just stop messing with me. Stop fucking messing with me." And then she was like, "Huh? I can't hear you. What's going on?" And I was like, "You heard me. Stop messing with me." And then I drove off, I flipped her off, and then she took a picture of that. So that's photographs, right? That's physical evidence. Phil Greeny's going to come up to my house with a photograph in his hand, acting like he's a damn police officer or something, like under the color of law. He's going to show up to my house and say, "Hey, I took this picture. Why are you yelling at my aunt or whoever?" And I wish I was ready for that, because that didn't exactly fall out the way I thought it was supposed to fall out. But he's going to mess with me immediately after, this day. So, okay, so we get to trash you even more. We get to ruin you even more. We went ahead and committed 200 crimes against you, and now I'm going to commit another 200 crimes. Fucking shit, man. And then I'm supposed to just fucking tolerate this shit? I'm just supposed to live through this shit? Yeah, right, man. I mean, this is such bullshit. You're supposed to put yourself in other people's shoes. Treat your neighbor as you treat yourself. And if Keith Schultz was going through the shit that I was going through, no way he doesn't, get the police to make some arrest. There's no way. There's no way he would just, have been able to survive what I had survived as a regular citizen. He's got awesome state authority. He's got the license to kill. He could have done so much more. He could have made a bunch of arrests. He could have got police officers to pay attention to this stuff. He could have done a sting operation. He could have done a stakeout. He could have done a canvassing of the neighborhood. He could have done some investigations. They didn't do any of that. So, at the very least, Robert Pickerel was a direct eyewitness who had saw every bit of it, right? He's outside of his house waiting for the guy to deliver him. He probably gave him the bad directions anyways. And then he gave him, bad directions. He's out there waiting for it. Might have heard the warning shots, saw me drive, there and back. And then he's the one that encourages Joe Canty to call the police. And he doesn't show up for trial. He doesn't show up for trial. He doesn't fucking testify to shit. He's an ex-felon. He committed crime after fucking crime after fucking crime, including participating in a drive-by shooting, an attempted murder. Robert Pickerel was involved in attempted murder on my life. And while, that could just be accessory to the fact, who was the driver? Robert Pickerel would know who the driver is. If he was an honest person, he could say, "Oh, Jonathan was nice when I was going through, some crap. He let me stay at his house for 3 days. And he was real nice with my dogs, even though we had this sort of, back and forth. My dogs had was running out, and he kind of just let me go get my dogs without, shaking me down." And he could have said a bunch of things, but he's a liar and a criminal. So, a lying criminal doesn't want to show up for court, doesn't respect the law, doesn't respect the state, don't respect the cops, don't respect the truth, don't respect justice. He's a criminal. I get to commit crimes, and I'm going to hide inside my house. I'm going to get Joe Canty to call the damn thing. I'm not going to listen to planning and zoning. I'm going to get Joe Canty involved in this stuff, and then I'm going to back away as if I had nothing to do with any of it. That's fucking crazy. So when it comes to probable cause, all they had was words, and all they had was lies. And if all it takes is a few words to make an arrest, Robert Pickerel should have been arrested. Sam Jepson should have been arrested. Phil Greeny should have been arrested. But for some reason, some people could just say words, and then I get arrested. But when I said words, nothing fucking happened. Like a little bit of something happened. They would show up. They would ask questions, of me. But they never actually found the culprits, and they didn't make any arrest. If you can organize 5 cops with a bunch of AK-47s and shit, then then they should have done that on my behalf, but they did not.
Almost 64. I'm clear from with the RP and en route out to the other's location.
The RP is the respondent. So I'm done with the respondent, and I'm coming up there. Right, he had been shot before, so he's gonna be the last person on the scene. But he's also gonna be the one that points a fucking gun at me for 48 seconds. So fucking thanks a lot, fucking Schultz, you piece of shit. Motherfucker didn't do a damn thing to the crimes that happened, so I didn't get equal protection, and there was not the fairness, the probable cause standard. Equal protection is the 14th Amendment, and then due process of law, life, liberty, or property can't be taken unless you got due process of law. So some of this is the court's problems, but there was one case that had said, I want to say Malley v. Briggs. And Malley v. Briggs, they had filed for a search warrant, and the magistrate had signed off on it. The judge signed off on the search warrant, but it was defective. And since the search warrant was defective, then they said that the police officer should have known better. If you're a police officer and you get a judge to sign your damn thing, don't you, presume that it's a good warrant? It's almost incredible. It's almost easier to do a warrantless, search and seizure, because if you go through the proper channels, you might not dot your I or cross your T right or some shit. And I want to say there was another case where the person had filed the application and he said it correctly, but the search warrant that was issued was incorrect. And they said that the police officer should have known better. The police officer should have known better. Are you fucking kidding me? But that does say that the liability falls on the police officer, even if the court system and the judges make a mistake. It falls upon the police officer almost no matter what. If the police officer just makes a mistake, it falls on them. If they go through the court and the court approves them and it's still a mistake, it still falls on them, because the judge has immunity. And so, many times, most of the times, absolute immunity. And not all the time, right? And then also prosecution they all get qualified immunity, but
2, 4, where do you guys need me at?
Just come behind us. We're trying to walk up to the driveway now.
Go on.